somebody be a whistleblower. Laws to protect whistleblowers from being punished or suffering retribution or losing their job. There are no laws that make a whistleblower completely anonymous. You violate one of the Bill of Rights when you do this. You know what it is? It's called the Sixth Amendment. Shall I read the Sixth Amendment for you? Let me read the Sixth Amendment for you, straight out from the Bill of Rights. Okay? In all criminal prosecutions, impeachment is a criminal prosecution, if you haven't figured it out, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial. Now, the Democrats have certainly gone speedy because they did in 78 days what Bill Clinton and Richard Nixon took over a year to do, right? By an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. Okay? In this case, jurisdiction belongs to the Senate and the House. And, of course, you'll be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation. Well, the Democrats have certainly been very accusatory. To be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. The real key there is to be confronted with the witnesses against him. And what that means is it goes back to the basic part of the Sixth Amendment, that a person accused of a crime has the right to confront a witness against him or her in a criminal action. You have the right. That's the Sixth Amendment. Somebody says you did something. You have a right to sit in court, look at that person, have that person accuse you, and then defend yourself against him. This whistleblower that, in this instance, everybody knows. Every so-called journalist, everybody in Washington, D.C., every senator, every congressman, every lobbyist, every lawyer, everybody in Washington, D.C., and many people across the country at this point know that the whistleblower, the alleged whistleblower, the supposed whistleblower, is Eric Ciaramella, who worked for Obama. And if Donald Trump is guilty of anything in the last 3 years, it's for being too nice and not firing every Obama appointee anywhere near him, in any department, in the White House, in the Department of Justice, in the FBI. He should have just... But how is he to know that it would be this ugly? And I'm sure Donald Trump knew there was corruption. I'm sure he did. I'm betting to this day he is amazed, confounded, and completely disappointed that the corruption in our government is so bad that he could trust nobody when he got to Washington, D.C. Even some of the people that he ended up hiring and bringing in at certain points, not to be trusted. But that's what happens when somebody from outside the D.C. Beltway goes in and tries to enact what we want as voters. Because let's be honest, excuse me, 63 million of us voted for Donald Trump, a complete outsider. Here's a guy, big businessman, successful, Hollywood guy, the whole nine yards, TV, movies. Everybody knew Donald Trump, but he had nothing to do with politics other than he would pay donations to politicians on either side, Republicans and Democrats. He didn't care. He had a job to do. And if you had to donate to campaigns to get things done, that's the way business has always been done in this country. That was his biggest attempt at being a politician, trying to sway politicians to help him out in his business. That's the American way, folks. I'm sorry, that's just it, right? You can call it greed, bribery, whatever. We don't call it bribery in this country. We call it political donations. It's lobbying. It's what you do. But that was Donald Trump. But he went into Washington, D.C. When he said he was going to drain the swamp, he meant he was going to drain the swamp. And the swamp people, the swamp creatures, these denizens of the swamp, are not happy that they're free ride because that's what they've been getting for decades on us. You want to know why the national debt is as high as it is? Because that money's going somewhere. You think it's just getting spent in a good manner? Not a chance. Corruption all over the place. And it's high time. This is the sea change. Donald Trump is the sea change that is causing this ruckus in Washington, D.C. And this is why the swamp, the Republicans, the rhinos, the never-Trumpers, the Democrats, the mainstream media, all these people that have their little hands in our honeypot are mad that their honeypot's being taken away from them. Donald Trump is doing that, and he's doing it for us. The guy doesn't take the salary, the $400,000 a year salary. That's, $150,000 a year, whatever it is, or every quarter. He's giving it away to different departments of government, the veterans, the national parks. He's not taking his salary. This is a guy whose net value has gone down since he's taken office. That's the first president ever to have that happen. So you can't think that Donald Trump is doing things in a bad manner. He's doing things to help each and every one of us. So we'll wait and see what's going to go on over the weekend with the impeachment trial. Late this afternoon, we were hearing stories that Mitch McConnell is kind of backing down a little bit on holding an immediate acquittal vote. And that there's always more than we know, right? There's a lot more to these stories. But now it's an alleged report that Mitch McConnell will give Chuck Schumer and the Democrats some more time to make some more final arguments, to continue beating their drum, beating the dead horse for this impeachment. But that acquittal vote will come like Wednesday, after the State of the Union. Now imagine that. How disrespectful is this to be pushed beyond to the point where Donald Trump now has to go to the State of the Union with this hanging over his head and make not only the State of the Union address as to where we are as a country, our successes, our failures, our goals for the upcoming year, but we have this damn impeachment hanging over his head. That's just wrong. And it's wrong for the Republicans. They should have just had this shut down right at the beginning. I know a lot of us, including myself at a certain point, wanted to open up the witness. Give us the witnesses. If you want Bolton, you go ahead and have Bolton. But I want Hunter Biden. I want Chiramella. I want all of them. I want the Schiff. I want the staffers. I want Nancy Pelosi. I want Hunter Biden. I want Joe Biden. Hell, bring in President Zelensky from Ukraine. Let's bring in Shokin, the previous prosecutor that Joe Biden forced out of office because he was extorting Ukraine to get rid of the prosecutor who was trying to investigate it. I wanted it all. And I'm hoping when we see all these tweets from Lindsey Graham that he's going to go after this one. This is all said and done, that we're still going to get some investigation into the corruption in Ukraine and the relation of that corruption in Ukraine to the Democratic Party, because it needs to happen. We, the people of the United States, need to know where those billions of dollars that went into Ukraine, where that money went. Did it come back to America? Did it come back into the certain pockets of certain people? Nancy Pelosi's got a nephew or a son who works for Ukraine. Mitt Romney's got a former staffer who works on a board of Ukraine. Adam Schiff has gotten money back in donations from Ukrainian people. There's been a lot of Ukrainian donations to politicians here in the United States. On both sides of the aisle, we need to know who those people are. I want to know who those people are, because billions of our dollars are gone that went into Ukraine and never came back out. And Ukrainian people didn't see them either. So there's corruption there. We need to root it out and find out what's going on. Okay, enough impeachment. I don't want to spend the entire hour on this. And we might cut it short tonight just because it's Friday night. I'd like to try and enjoy my evening a little bit. But there was an article we put up on the Daily Drift today. And again, if you're not going to the Daily Drift, please do. www.thedailydrift.com. It's the news you need to know. And I work on it every day, put it out there. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. You can have it delivered to your inbox every day if you want, so you don't have to actually type into the website. If you put your email in there, I don't sell it. I don't track it. I don't know anything about it. You don't have to worry about it. It's a freebie. When I say free, it's free. This is me doing this absolutely free, so you can go in on it. But we put a story on there about Bernie Sanders, who's probably going to win Iowa. You think? I'm betting he's going to win on Monday, his Iowa caucus. Bernie Sanders' campaign is preparing dozens of executive orders to bypass Congress in his first days in office. Does that sound interesting to you? Does that sound Stalinistic to you? Well, that's what let's go. Bernie, who spent his honeymoon in Russia, back when the Soviet Union was still there, right? In anticipation of his winning the 2020 presidential election, the campaign for Senator Bernie Sanders is preparing dozens of executive orders that he could unilaterally enact in his first days in office, bypassing Congress in doing so. What are the details? Does it sound odd that Bernie would do? No, not likable old Grandpa Bernie. He wouldn't do that, would he? Aides have presented Sanders with a list of possible executive actions, including more than a dozen for reversing President Trump's immigration policy, such as lifting the cap on the number of refugees accepted in the United States. If you haven't been paying attention, you should. Donald Trump has severely curtailed the amount of immigration coming into the country. The United States takes in 1 million people legally every year. Donald Trump is put very sharp parameters on that. And that's important because you know what? The more people you have in the country, the lower the wages get. You wonder why wages have gone up the last year? Because we've kind of curtailed the amount of people coming in legally. Now, we've also curtailed the number of people coming in illegally. You can get into that in separate. But it's the successes that Donald Trump, when you talk about promises made, promises kept, Donald Trump is doing all of that. Also from Bernie, halting border wall construction immediately. Another option is the reinstatement of an Obama-era program that granted legal status to all undocumented immigrants brought to America as children. DACA, right? So here's another one. Declaring climate change a national emergency and banning the exportation of crude oil. So declaring climate change an emergency means Bernie can do whatever he wants. It's a national emergency. Oh, let's shut down every coal plant? It's a national emergency. Stop driving your cars? It's a national emergency. Stop buying gas. Turn your heat down to 50 degrees. Really? What exactly does a national emergency do? And what does that mean Bernie's going to ask all of us or force all of us to do? Banning the exportation of crude oil. The United States, for the first time, just became a net exporter of oil and natural gas. Meaning, we don't have to rely on the Middle East. We don't have to rely on Russia. You know, if the Middle East explodes and becomes an inferno of war and whatnot, a hotbed, we've got enough ability to make our own natural oil and natural gas that we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to get in the middle of that. It's not going to affect us that adversely. We won't have the lines of the oil embargo in the 70s because we can produce it ourselves. That's one of those things, right? He could also reverse federal rules blocking U.S. funding to organizations that provide abortion funding and counseling. So, well, hell, if you're a pro-lifer, bad news having Bernie in there, right? And also canceling federal contracts for firms that pay less than the $15 an hour minimum wage. Really? Once again, interfering in the free market economy by forcing $15 wages. We've already seen what happened in Seattle, right? The city of Seattle went ahead and did their $15 an hour minimum wage, and tons of businesses and coffee shops and restaurants all shut down. Yeah, that's real smart. That helped a lot, didn't it? But it goes to show you what socialism is. I just look south of the border. Socialism destroys everything it touches, much like Islam. I won't go there. Right now, anyways, not in this show.